The iron door slammed shut behind Officer Martinez as he entered cell block D. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. At the end of the corridor, in cell 47, sat Marcus Webb, a man whose reputation preceded him. 42 years old, built like he'd spent every day of his 15-year sentence in the prison gym, with shoulders that strained against his orange uniform. His dark skin bore the marks of time behind bars, a scar above his left eyebrow, hands calloused from years of labor in the workshop. Martinez had seen countless prisoners in his 12 years as a corrections officer. But something about Marcus's request, written in careful block letters on the standard form, made him pause. Most dying inmates asked for family visits, favorite meals, or letters delivered to loved ones. Marcus Webb had asked for something different. "I want to see the Virgin Mary statue at St. Catherine's Church, just once, before my time runs out." The prison doctor had given Marcus 6 months, maybe less. Liver cancer, stage 4, spreading fast. The man who'd once been convicted of armed robbery and assault, who'd put 2 people in the hospital during a botched convenience store heist, now sat quietly on his bunk, rosary beads wrapped around his massive fists. But there was something Marcus hadn't told the chaplain when he'd submitted his request, something that made his hands shake every time he thought about St. Catherine's Church, about the white marble statue that stood in the alcove near the altar, a secret that had burned inside him for 23 years. Martinez approached the cell, keys jangling at his hip. "Webb, Warden wants to see you about your request." Marcus looked up, his dark eyes holding an intensity that made Martinez take an involuntary step back. "When?" "Now." As Marcus stood, unfolding his 6'3" frame, Martinez noticed something he'd never seen before in the man's expression. Not hope exactly, something deeper, something that looked almost like fear. They walked in silence through the corridors, past cells where other inmates called out questions, past the common area where a television droned on unwatched. Marcus's footsteps were measured, deliberate, as if he were counting each one. His jaw was set tight, muscles working beneath the skin. In the warden's office, Warden Patricia Chen sat behind her desk, Marcus's file open before her. She was known for being fair but firm, a woman who'd spent 20 years in corrections and had seen every manipulation, every con. She looked up as they entered, her expression unreadable. "Sit down, Webb." Marcus lowered himself into the chair across from her, his large frame making the furniture look small. Martinez stood by the door, hand resting on his belt. "Your request is unusual," Chen said, tapping the paper with one finger. "St. Catherine's is 3 miles from here. You're a maximum security inmate with a violent history. You understand what you're asking?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why this church? Why this statue?" Chen leaned forward, studying his face. "There's a chapel here. Father Morrison comes twice a week. If you want spiritual comfort, it has to be St. Catherine's," Marcus interrupted, his voice rough but steady. "That specific statue. I can't explain why without—" He paused, swallowing hard. "Without telling you something I've never told anyone." The room fell silent. Martinez shifted his weight, suddenly more interested. In 12 years, he'd never heard Marcus Webb volunteer information about anything. Chen closed the file slowly. "I'm listening." Marcus's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, knuckles going pale despite his dark skin. 23 years ago, before I came here, before the robbery, I did something. Something worse than what I'm in here for." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And the only person who knows the truth is buried in St. Catherine's Cemetery." Below, the confession hung in the air like smoke. Warden Chen's expression shifted from professional skepticism to sharp attention. Martinez found himself leaning forward, despite his training to remain detached. "What are you saying, Webb?" Chen's voice was careful, controlled. Marcus's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. "I'm saying that if I die, Without going to that church, without standing in front of that statue, someone innocent stays blamed for something they didn't do. Someone's memory stays dirty when it should be clean. Chen exchanged a glance with Martinez. This wasn't the typical deathbed confession. This was something else. "You're talking about a crime?" she asked. "I'm talking about the truth," Marcus said. His voice cracked slightly. "A truth I've been too much of a coward to tell for over 2 decades." Martinez watched as the massive man's shoulders began to shake. In 12 years, he'd never seen Marcus Webb show weakness. The man had taken beatings in the yard without flinching, had spent months in solitary without complaint, but now, talking about a church statue, he looked like he might break apart. "The Virgin Mary statue at St. Catherine's," Marcus continued, his words coming faster now, as if a dam had burst. "It was donated in 1999. I know because I was there the day they unveiled it. I was 17 years old, and I was there with someone who—" He stopped, closing his eyes. "Someone who trusted me." Chen pulled out a notepad. "I need you to be specific, Webb. If you're confessing to a crime, I have to—" "I'm not confessing to a crime," Marcus interrupted, opening his eyes. They were wet now, glistening in the fluorescent light. "I'm confessing to being a coward, to letting someone take the blame for my mistake, to destroying a family because I was too scared to speak up." The warden set down her pen. "This person who's buried at St. Catherine's. Who are they?" Marcus's jaw worked silently for a moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet they had to strain to hear. "Her name was Elena Rodriguez. She was my best friend's mother. And everyone thinks she's a thief." Martinez felt a chill run down his spine. He'd grown up in this town. He remembered the Rodriguez case. It had been all over the local news. A church secretary accused of embezzling funds, found dead of an apparent suicide before the trial. The scandal had destroyed the family. "Elena Rodriguez," Chen repeated, her eyes widening with recognition. "The saint. Catherine's embezzlement case from 2002? Marcus nodded, a single tear tracking down his cheek. "She didn't take that money. I did." The room went completely silent. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to fade away. Martinez's mind raced, remembering the details. $50,000 missing from the church building fund. Elena Rodriguez, a devoted single mother who'd worked at the church for 15 years, found with evidence planted in her home. She died 3 days after the accusation, pills and alcohol, leaving behind a teenage son. "Her son Miguel," Marcus continued, his voice breaking. "He was my best friend. We grew up together, played basketball together, dreamed about getting out of this town together, and I destroyed his life. I let his mother die thinking the whole world believed she was a thief. I let him grow up believing his mother was a criminal." Chen leaned back in her chair, processing. "Why are you telling us this now?" "Because I'm dying," Marcus said simply. "And because Miguel deserves to know the truth. His mother's name deserves to be cleared, and I need to face what I did before I—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Martinez spoke for the first time. "Where's the money?" Marcus looked at him, something like relief crossing his face at the practical question. "Gone. Spent it all in 6 months on stupid things. Cars, clothes, trying to impress people. By the time Elena died, by the time I realized what I'd really done, it was too late. I was broke, guilty, and too terrified to come forward." "And the robbery that put you here?" Chen asked. "The convenience store." 3 years later," Marcus said, "I was drowning in guilt, drinking too much, making worse and worse decisions. The robbery was just the final stupid thing in a long line of stupid things. Part of me wanted to get caught. Part of me thought prison was what I deserved." Chen stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the prison yard. "You understand what you're asking me to do? You want me to arrange a supervised visit to a church so you can—" "What? Pray? Confess to a statue?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "I want to confess to Miguel. He works there now, at St. Catherine's. He's the maintenance supervisor, has been for 5 years. Martinez's eyes widened. You want a face-to-face with your victim's son? I want to give him the truth, Marcus corrected. I want to tell him his mother was innocent. I want to tell him how I framed her, how I planted that evidence, how I was too much of a coward to speak up when she needed someone to believe her. His voice grew stronger. And I want to do it in front of that statue, the one his mother helped fundraise for, the one that was supposed to represent hope and protection, because that's where it should happen. That's where the lie began, and that's where it needs to end. Chen turned back to face him. Miguel Rodriguez doesn't know you're making this request? No, he doesn't even know I knew his mother. I disappeared after the robbery before I got arrested. He probably doesn't remember me at all. We were just kids. This could destroy him all over again, Martinez said quietly. Opening up old wounds. Or it could heal them, Marcus countered. He deserves to know his mother was innocent. He deserves to know she died with honor, even if the world didn't see it. Even if it means he hates me forever, he deserves the truth. Warden Chen returned to her desk, sitting down heavily. She looked at Marcus Webb, this violent criminal, this dying man, this keeper of a terrible secret, and saw something she hadn't expected to see. Genuine remorse. Real courage, even if it came 23 years too late. I'll need to verify your story, she said finally. I'll need to contact the police, review the old case files. If what you're saying is true. It's true, Marcus said. Every word. Then this isn't just about a church visit anymore, Chen said. This is about reopening a closed case. This is about clearing a dead woman's name. This is about confronting a man with the truth about his mother's death. She paused. This is complicated, Webb. I know, Marcus said, but I'm running out of time. The doctor said 6 months, but I can feel it. I'm getting weaker every day. If I don't do this soon... He didn't finish, but the implication was clear. Chen looked at Martinez. Get Detective Sarah Chen on the phone. She worked the Rodriguez case back in 2002. If anyone can verify this story, she can. As Martinez moved to the phone, Marcus spoke again. There's one more thing. Chen raised an eyebrow. What? The statue. The Virgin Mary statue at St. Catherine's. Elena helped choose it. She spent months fundraising for it, organizing bake sales and car washes. She wanted it to be perfect, to be a symbol of protection for the community. Marcus's voice grew thick with emotion. And I used that statue, that symbol she loved, as part of my cover. I volunteered to help install it, to be around the church to gain trust. That's how I got access to the financial records. That's how I knew where to plant the evidence. The weight of his words settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Martinez paused with the phone in his hand, looking back at Marcus with something between disgust and pity. So you want to confess in front of the very symbol you desecrated, Chen said slowly. You want to face Miguel Rodriguez in the place where his mother's dream came true and her nightmare began. Yes, Marcus said simply. Because that's where the healing needs to start, not in a prison chapel, not in a courtroom. But there, in that church, in front of that statue, where Eleanor's love and my betrayal both live. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded to Martinez. Make the call. Detective Sarah Chen arrived at the prison 2 hours later. Now retired, but still sharp as ever, she carried a worn cardboard box filled with files from the Rodriguez case. Martinez led her to a private conference room where Warden Chen and Marcus waited. I never thought I'd hear that name again, Sarah said, as she set the box on the table. She was in her 60s now, grey hair pulled back in a practical bun, but her eyes were still the eyes of a detective, missing nothing. Elena Rodriguez. That case haunted me for years. She looked at Marcus, studying him. You say you took the money? Yes, ma'am. Prove it. Sarah pulled out a file, opening it to reveal crime scene photos and evidence logs. Tell me something only the real thief would know. Marcus took a deep breath. The money was kept in a safe in Father O'Brien's office. The combination was written on a piece of paper taped under his desk drawer. Elena had shown it to me once when I was helping her organize files. She trusted me. His voice wavered. I used that trust against her. Sarah's expression didn't change. That information was in the case file. Try again. Marcus nodded, expecting this. The evidence planted in Elena's house, bank statements, deposit slips. I put them in a shoebox in her bedroom closet, behind her winter boots. But what the police didn't know, what wasn't in any report, is that I also left a single red rose on her kitchen table that same night. Sarah's eyes widened slightly. A rose? Elena loved roses. Her whole backyard was full of them. I thought... Marcus's voice broke. I thought if I left something beautiful, it would somehow make what I was doing less ugly. I was 17 and stupid and trying to convince myself I wasn't destroying someone's life. Sarah flipped through the file, her hands moving faster now. There was a rose mentioned in Elena's diary. She wrote about it the night before the police came. She thought Miguel had left it for her, a sweet gesture before everything fell apart. She looked up at Marcus, her professional mask cracking slightly. How do you know about the diary? I don't, Marcus said. I didn't know she kept a diary. I just know I left that rose. The room was silent except for the rustle of papers as Sarah continued searching through the files. Finally, she pulled out a photocopy of a handwritten page. Here. Found a beautiful red rose on the kitchen table today. Miguel must have picked it from the garden. Such a sweet boy, trying to cheer me up when he knows I've been stressed about the building fund audit. I'll press it in my Bible to remember this moment of simple kindness. Marcus closed his eyes, fresh tears streaming down his face. She thought her son left it. She died thinking her son had tried to comfort her, not knowing it was the person who was framing her. Sarah set down the diary page, her hands trembling slightly. I worked that case for 8 months. I never felt right about it. Elena Rodriguez didn't fit the profile. She was devoted to that church, to her son, to her community. But the evidence was there, clear as day. And then she died, and everyone assumed it was guilt. She looked at Marcus with something like anger. You let her die, believing the world thought she was a thief. I know, Marcus whispered. I've known for 23 years, and I've been too much of a coward to fix it until now. Warden Chen spoke up. Detective, if his confession is credible, what happens next? Sarah sat back in her chair, processing. The case was closed after Elena's death. No trial, no conviction, just closed. If Marcus is telling the truth, we can reopen it. We can clear her name officially, but... She paused, looking at Marcus. You'll be confessing to embezzlement, to evidence tampering, to fraud. Even if you're dying, even if you're already serving time for another crime, this will add years to your sentence. I don't have years, Marcus said quietly. I have months, maybe weeks. I don't care about more charges. I care about Miguel knowing the truth. I care about Elena's name being cleared. Sarah pulled out another file, this one thinner. Miguel Rodriguez. I kept tabs on him over the years. Felt guilty about what happened to his family. He struggled after his mother died. Dropped out of college, worked odd jobs, got into some trouble. But he turned it around, got clean, got stable, got the job at St. Catherine's 5 years ago. She looked at Marcus. He goes to that church every day. He maintains the grounds, fixes things, keeps the place running. And every Sunday he puts fresh flowers at the base of the Virgin Mary statue. Marcus's face crumpled. The statue his mother fundraised for. Yes, Sarah confirmed. He told Father Martinez once that it's the only place he feels close to her. The only place where he can remember her before the scandal, before the accusations, before everything fell apart. Then that's where I need to tell him, Marcus said firmly. Not in a police station. Not in a courtroom. There, at that statue where he goes to remember his mother. That's where he needs to hear that she was innocent. Warden Chen leaned forward. Detective, is this even possible? Can we arrange this? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, weighing options, considering protocols. Finally, she nodded slowly. It's unconventional. But given the circumstances, a dying inmate, a cold case that was never properly resolved. a victim's family member who deserves the truth. I think I can make it happen. I'll need to coordinate with the current police chief, get approval from the DA's office, arrange security. She looked at Marcus. And you'll need to be prepared for Miguel's reaction. He might not believe you. He might attack you. He might break down completely. This is going to destroy him before it heals him. I know, Marcus said. But he deserves the truth more than I deserve an easy death. Sarah gathered her files, standing up. I'll start making calls. But Webb, understand this. Once we start this process, there's no going back. You'll be on record. Your confession will be official, and Miguel Rodriguez's life will be turned upside down all over again. I understand, Marcus said. When can we do it? Sarah looked at Warden Chen, then back at Marcus. If I can get all the approvals, if I can coordinate with the church and with Miguel's schedule without tipping him off, maybe a week, maybe 2. Make it sooner, Marcus said, his voice urgent. Please. I can feel myself getting weaker. I need to do this while I still can. After Sarah left, Martinez escorted Marcus back to his cell. They walked in silence until they reached cell block D. As Martinez unlocked the door, Marcus spoke quietly. Officer Martinez, thank you. Martinez paused. For what? For not looking at me like I'm just a monster. For listening. Martinez didn't respond immediately. He'd spent 12 years learning to see inmates as numbers, as security risks, as problems to manage. But standing here, looking at this dying man who was trying to do one good thing before the end, he couldn't quite maintain that distance. I grew up Catholic, Martinez said finally. My grandmother used to say that redemption isn't about erasing what you did, it's about facing it. You're facing it, Webb. That's more than most people ever do. Marcus nodded, stepping into his cell. As the door closed behind him, Martinez walked away, his mind churning. In a week, maybe 2, Marcus Webb would stand in front of Miguel Rodriguez and destroy everything the man believed about his mother's death. And somehow, impossibly, that destruction might be the kindest thing anyone had ever done for him. Duel, 3 days later. Detective Sarah Chen sat across from Father Martinez in the rectory office at St. Catherine's Church. The priest was in his 50s, with kind eyes, and the patient demeanor of someone who'd heard countless confessions. But Sarah's request was unlike anything he'd encountered before. You want to bring a convicted felon to my church, Father Martinez said slowly, so he can confess to a crime from 23 years ago in front of the victim's son, who happens to work here and has no idea this is coming. That's correct, Sarah confirmed. Father Martinez rubbed his temples. Detective, I appreciate the desire for truth and justice. But Miguel Rodriguez is a member of this parish. He's a good man who's worked hard to build a life after tragedy. Ambushing him with this information in the church where his mother worshipped in front of the statue she loved. He shook his head. It seems cruel. It would be crueler to let him keep believing his mother was a thief, Sarah countered. Father, I worked Eleanor's case. I saw what the accusations did to her, to Miguel, to their family. If there's a chance to clear her name, don't we owe it to her memory? And you believe this prisoner, this Marcus Webb? I do, Sarah said. He knows details that were never made public, and he has nothing to gain from lying. He's dying, Father. This isn't about reducing his sentence or getting parole. This is about a man trying to make one thing right before he dies. Father Martinez stood, walking to the window that overlooked the church grounds. Outside, Miguel Rodriguez was trimming hedges near the cemetery, his movements careful and methodical. Miguel comes here every morning before anyone else arrives. He prays at his mother's grave, then he puts fresh flowers at the Virgin Mary statue. It's his routine, his way of coping. If we disrupt that, we give him the truth, Sarah finished. Father, I'm not asking you to approve of how this happened. I'm asking you to help facilitate healing. Real healing, not the false peace built on lies. The priest was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned back to Sarah. When? Next Tuesday morning. Early, before the church opens for daily mass, we'll bring Webb in with a security escort. Miguel will be here doing his usual routine. We'll approach him together. You, me, Warden Chen, and Webb. We'll explain the situation and give Miguel the choice of whether to hear the confession. The choice, Father Martinez repeated. That's important. Miguel must have the choice. Absolutely, Sarah agreed. If he doesn't want to hear it, we'll leave. But he deserves to know the option exists. Father Martinez nodded slowly. I'll be there, not as a facilitator, but as Miguel's priest, to support him through whatever happens. That's all I'm asking, Sarah said. After she left, Father Martinez remained at the window, watching Miguel work. The young man, though he was 35 now, hardly young, moved with quiet purpose, tending to the church grounds with the same devotion his mother had shown to her secretarial duties. The priest remembered Elena Rodriguez, remembered her kindness, her dedication, her devastation when the accusations came. He remembered her funeral, remembered Miguel's hollow eyes as they lowered her casket into the ground, and he remembered the whispers, the judgment, the way people had pulled away from the Rodriguez family as if shame were contagious. Elena had died without vindication, and Miguel had grown up under the shadow of his mother's supposed crime. If there was a chance to lift that shadow, didn't they have to take it? Father Martinez pulled out his phone and dialed. Detective Chen, I'm in, but I want to be the one to tell Miguel that someone needs to speak with him. I don't want him to feel ambushed. Agreed, Sarah said. Thank you, Father. Thank you. As he hung up, Father Martinez looked at the Virgin Mary statue visible through the window, its white marble gleaming in the afternoon sun. Elena had loved that statue, had worked tirelessly to bring it to the church. She'd believed it would be a symbol of protection and grace for the community. Soon, it would become the site of a confession that would either destroy Miguel Rodriguez or finally set him free. Marcus Webb lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling of cell 47. The pain in his abdomen was getting worse, a constant gnawing that the prison doctor's medications barely touched. He'd lost 15 pounds in the last month, his prison uniform hanging loose on his once powerful frame. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the anticipation. In 4 days, he would face Miguel Rodriguez. In 4 days, he would speak the words he'd been too cowardly to say for 23 years. You're really going through with it, a voice said from the neighboring cell. It was Jerome, a lifer who'd been Marcus's neighbor for the past 8 years. They'd developed the kind of friendship that prison sometimes fostered. Cautious, respectful, built on shared silence more than shared words. Yeah, Marcus said. You scared? Marcus laughed, a bitter sound. Terrified. Good, Jerome said. Means you're taking it seriously. Means it matters. It matters, Marcus confirmed. It's the only thing that's mattered in a long time. There was a pause. Then Jerome spoke again, his voice thoughtful. I never asked what you did. Before the robbery, I mean. We all got our stories, our reasons for being here, but you always seemed like you were carrying something heavier than just the conviction. I destroyed a family, Marcus said simply. I let a good woman die in shame. I let her son grow up thinking his mother was a criminal, and I did it all to save my own skin. And now you're trying to fix it. Now I'm trying to tell the truth, Marcus corrected. I can't fix it. Elena Rodriguez is still dead. Miguel Rodriguez still lost his mother. I can't undo any of that. All I can do is tell him she was innocent. That's something, Jerome said. That's more than most people ever do. Marcus rolled onto his side, facing the wall. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's all I have left to give. That night, Marcus dreamed of Elena Rodriguez. He hadn't seen her in over 2 decades, but his mind conjured her face with perfect clarity. Kind eyes, warm smile, the patient way she'd explained church finances to a 17-year-old volunteer who'd pretended to be interested in helping. In the dream, they were in Father O'Brien's office. Elena was showing him where the financial records were kept, trusting him with information because she believed he was a good kid, because she believed in giving young people responsibility and respect. "You're Miguel's friend," Dream Elena said. "I'm so glad he has someone like you in his life." And Dream Marcus, knowing what real Marcus would do with this trust, wanted to scream, wanted to warn her, wanted to tell her to lock the safe and change the combination and never trust him with anything ever again. But he couldn't speak. He could only watch as Dream Elena smiled at him as she handed him the keys to the office, as she sealed her own fate with kindness. Marcus woke up gasping, sweat soaking his thin mattress. The cell was dark, the prison quiet except for the usual sounds. Distant coughs, the shuffle of a guard's footsteps, the hum of fluorescent lights in the corridor. 4 more days. 4 more days until he faced the consequences of that trust, that betrayal, that terrible choice he'd made when he was 17 and stupid and convinced he could get away with anything. 4 more days until Miguel Rodriguez learned the truth about his mother. Marcus pressed his hands against his abdomen, feeling the hard mass of the tumor beneath his skin. The cancer was eating him alive, cell by cell, day by day. Some people might call it justice. Marcus just called it timing. He was going to die. But before he did, he was going to give Miguel Rodriguez the one thing he'd stolen 23 years ago, the truth about Elena's innocence, even if Miguel hated him for it, even if the truth hurt worse than the lie, even if clearing Elena's name meant destroying whatever peace Miguel had managed to build. The truth mattered more than Marcus's comfort. It always had. He'd just been too much of a coward to admit it, until now. Tuesday morning arrived cold and grey, the kind of morning where the sun seemed reluctant to rise. At 5:30 a.m., a prison transport van pulled into the parking lot of St. Catherine's Church. Inside were Marcus Webb, Warden Chen, Officer Martinez, and 2 additional security guards. Marcus wore civilian clothes, jeans and a plain grey sweatshirt that hung loose on his diminished frame. His hands were cuffed in front of him, a compromise between security and dignity. He looked out the van window at the church, its stone facade familiar even after all these years. "You ready?" Warden Chen asked. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Detective Sarah Chen was waiting by the church entrance with Father Martinez. As Marcus stepped out of the van, the cold air hit him like a slap. He stumbled slightly, and Martinez steadied him with a hand on his elbow. "Miguel is inside," Father Martinez said quietly. "He's in the sanctuary, replacing candles. I told him I needed to speak with him about a sensitive matter, that there were some people who had information about his mother." "How did he react?" Sarah asked. "He went very still," the priest said. "Then he asked if it was about the case. I said yes. He's been waiting by the statue for the past 10 minutes. Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. This was it. No more delays, no more excuses, no more cowardice. They entered the church through a side door. The sanctuary was dim, lit only by votive candles, and the early morning light filtering through stained glass windows. And there, in the alcove near the altar, stood the Virgin Mary statue. It was exactly as Marcus remembered. White marble, 6 feet tall, the Virgin's face serene and compassionate, her hands outstretched in welcome. At the base of the statue was a fresh bouquet of roses, red and yellow and white. And standing in front of the statue, his back to them, was Miguel Rodriguez. He was taller than Marcus remembered, broader in the shoulders, his dark hair touched with premature grey. He wore work clothes, jeans and a St. Catherine's maintenance shirt. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture rigid with tension. Father Martinez approached first. "Miguel, thank you for waiting." Miguel turned, and Marcus saw his face for the first time in 23 years. The boy he'd known, laughing, energetic, full of dreams, was gone. In his place was a man with tired eyes and a guarded expression, someone who'd learned not to trust easily, not to hope for too much. Miguel's gaze swept over the group, the warden, the detective, the guards, and finally landed on Marcus. There was no recognition in his eyes, just wariness. "What's this about?" Miguel asked. His voice was deeper than Marcus remembered, roughened by years and grief. Detective Sarah stepped forward. "Mr. Rodriguez, my name is Detective Sarah Chen. I worked your mother's case in 2002. I'm here because new information has come to light. Information that changes everything we thought we knew about what happened." Miguel's jaw tightened. "What kind of information?" Sarah looked at Marcus, nodding slightly. This was his moment, his confession, his truth to tell. Marcus stepped forward, his legs shaking, his cuffed hands trembling. "Miguel, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Marcus Webb. We were friends when we were kids. We played basketball together, hung out at the community center." Miguel stared at him, searching his face. Slowly, recognition dawned. "Marcus! Marcus Webb!" His voice was incredulous. "I haven't seen you since before." He trailed off, the implications sinking in. "Since before your mother was accused," Marcus finished quietly. "Since before she died. I disappeared right after that, Miguel. And there's a reason why." Miguel took a step back, his shoulder brushing against the statue. "What are you talking about?" Marcus took a deep breath. This was it, the moment he'd been dreading and needing in equal measure. "Your mother didn't take that money, Miguel. She didn't embezzle from the church. She didn't betray anyone's trust." His voice broke. "I did." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Miguel's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. "What?" "I took the money from the church building fund," Marcus continued, the words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. "I was 17. I was stupid and greedy, and I thought I could get away with it. Your mother had trusted me, had shown me where the financial records were kept, had given me access because she believed in me. And I used that trust to steal $50,000. Miguel's breathing had gone shallow. No, that's not. The evidence was in her house. The bank statements, the deposit slips. "I planted them," Marcus said. "I broke into your house while you were both at church. I put the evidence in her closet behind her winter boots. I made it look like she'd been hiding it. And then I disappeared, let the investigation happen, let your mother take the blame for what I did." "You're lying," Miguel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why are you saying this?" Because I'm dying," Marcus said simply. "I have maybe a month left, maybe less, and I can't die without telling you the truth. Your mother was innocent, Miguel. She was a good woman, a devoted mother, a faithful servant of this church. And she died believing the whole world thought she was a thief. She died in shame for a crime she didn't commit. And I let it happen because I was too much of a coward to come forward." Miguel's legs seemed to give out. He sank to his knees in front of the statue, his hands gripping the marble base. "No, no, no, no. This can't be. She's been dead for 23 years. 23 years I've believed. Everyone believed." "I know," Marcus said, tears streaming down his face now. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Miguel. I can't give you back your mother. I can't undo the pain, the shame, the years you spent thinking she was guilty. But I can give you the truth. She was innocent. She was always innocent." Father Martinez moved to Miguel's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. But Miguel shook him off, rising to his feet with sudden fury. "You destroyed her!" Miguel shouted, his voice echoing through the empty church. "She killed herself because of you. She couldn't live with the shame, with the accusations, with everyone turning their backs on her. And you just disappeared. You just let her die?" "Yes," Marcus said, not flinching from the anger, from the pain in Miguel's eyes. "I let her die. I was a coward. I was selfish. I was everything your mother wasn't. And I've lived with that guilt every single day for 23 years. "Guilt?" Miguel laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "You think your guilt matters? You think your confession now when you're dying anyway, when you have nothing left to lose? You think that makes up for what you did? No, Marcus said firmly. "It doesn't make up for anything. Nothing I do will ever make up for what I took from you, from your mother, from your family. But you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know that your mother was innocent, that she was exactly the woman you thought she was before the accusations, that her memory deserves to be honored, not tainted by a lie." Miguel stood there, his chest heaving, his fists clenched at his sides. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of his ragged breathing and the distant hum of traffic outside. Then, slowly, Miguel turned to look at the Virgin Mary statue, his mother's statue, the symbol she'd worked so hard to bring to this church. "She loved this statue," Miguel said quietly, his anger draining into something deeper, more painful. "She used to bring me here when they were installing it. She'd tell me about how the Virgin Mary was a symbol of protection, of grace, of unconditional love. She'd say that no matter what happened in life, we could always come here and find peace." He turned back to Marcus, and the look in his eyes was devastating. "And you used this statue. You used her love for this church, her faith, her kindness. You used all of it to destroy her." "Yes," Marcus whispered. "I did." Miguel's face crumpled. He sank back to his knees, and this time when Father Martinez reached for him, he didn't pull away. He leaned into the priest's embrace and began to sob, deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of his being. Marcus stood there, watching his own tears falling silently. This was the destruction he'd caused. This was the pain he'd inflicted, and there was nothing he could do to fix it, nothing he could say to make it better. But at least now, Miguel knew the truth. At least now Elena Rodriguez's name could be cleared, even if it meant breaking her son's heart all over again. For 20 minutes, Miguel sobbed. Marcus stood silent, the guards shifting uncomfortably behind him. Detective Sarah exchanged glances with Warden Chen, both understanding that this moment couldn't be rushed. Finally, Miguel's sobs quieted to ragged breathing. He pulled away from Father Martinez, wiping his face with his sleeve. When he looked at Marcus again, his eyes were red, but clearer. "Tell me everything," Miguel said, his voice hoarse. "Every detail, how you did it, why you did it, all of it." Marcus nodded. "I was 17, working part-time at the community center. Your mom got me the volunteer position at the church. Thought it would be good for me. She showed me around, introduced me to Father O'Brien, explained how the building fund worked." He paused, swallowing hard. "She trusted me because I was your friend." "The money," Miguel pressed. "How did you take it?" "The safe combination was under Father O'Brien's desk. Your mom showed me once when she needed help filing documents. I memorized it. Over 3 months, I made small withdrawals, forged signatures on requisition forms. 50,000 total." Marcus's voice was flat, factual. "I spent it on stupid things. A car I wrecked 2 months later, clothes, trying to impress people who didn't matter." Miguel's fists clenched. "And my mother, how did you frame her? I knew an audit was coming. I panicked. I created fake bank statements showing deposits to an account I'd opened in a similar name to hers. I broke into your house one night. You were both at Wednesday evening service. I planted the statements in her closet, made it look like she'd been hiding them." Marcus's voice cracked. "And I left a rose on the kitchen table, because I was a stupid kid who thought a flower would somehow make what I was doing less evil." Miguel's breath caught. "The rose. She wrote about it in her diary. She thought I'd left it for her." "I know that now," Marcus whispered. "I'm sorry." Miguel stood abruptly, pacing in front of the statue. "She died 3 days after the police came. 3 days. Pills and alcohol. The coroner said it was suicide, but I always wondered if it was an accident, if she just wanted the pain to stop for a while." He turned to Marcus, his face twisted with anguish. "Did you know she was dead?" "I heard about it," Marcus said. "I was hiding out at my cousin's place in another state. When I heard, He couldn't finish. "You what?" Miguel demanded. "You felt bad? You cried? You thought about coming forward?" "All of that," Marcus said. "And I did nothing. I was too scared, too selfish." I convinced myself it was too late, that coming forward wouldn't bring her back, so I stayed hidden, stayed silent, and let you grow up believing your mother was a criminal." Miguel's laugh was bitter. "Do you know what it was like, going to school after she died? Everyone whispering, pointing, saying my mother was a thief who killed herself out of guilt? Do you know what it's like to defend someone when you're not even sure yourself if they're innocent?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "I don't, but I know I caused it. All of it." Miguel turned away, staring at the Virgin Mary statue, his mother's statue, the symbol of everything she'd believed in, everything she'd worked for. "I dropped out of college," he said quietly. "Couldn't focus, couldn't handle people asking about my family. I worked construction, got into drinking, made bad choices. Took me years to get clean, to get stable." He touched the marble base gently. "This statue saved me. Coming here, talking to her in front of it, pretending she could hear me, it was the only thing that kept me going." Marcus watched, his heart breaking. "She can hear you, Miguel, maybe not literally, but her love for you, that's real, that never died." "Don't," Miguel snapped. "Don't talk about her love. You don't get to talk about that." "You're right," Marcus said. "I don't." Detective Sarah stepped forward carefully. "Miguel, Marcus's confession is on record now. We can reopen your mother's case officially. We can clear her name, issue a public statement, correct the record. Your mother's reputation can be restored." Miguel's shoulders sagged. 23 years too late. "Better late than never," Father Martinez said gently. "Your mother's memory deserves the truth. The community deserves to know they were wrong about her." "The community," Miguel repeated bitterly. "The same community that abandoned us, that crossed the street to avoid me, that whispered behind my back for years?" He shook his head. "What good does clearing her name do now?" "It means she's remembered correctly," Marcus said. "It means when people visit her grave, when they say her name, they know she was innocent. It means you don't have to carry the weight of her supposed crime anymore." Miguel looked at him, really looked at him, seeing the gaunt face, the trembling hands, the obvious signs of illness. "You're really dying?" "Yes. Liver cancer, stage 4. Maybe a month left." "Good," Miguel said flatly. Then his face crumpled. "No, not good. I don't know what I feel. I don't know if I want you to suffer or if I want—" He stopped, pressing his palms against his eyes. "I don't know anything anymore." Warden Chen spoke for the first time. "Mr. Rodriguez, I understand this is overwhelming, but Marcus has agreed to provide a full written confession, to testify if needed, to do whatever it takes to officially clear your mother's name. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's not asking for anything except the chance to tell the truth." "The truth," Miguel repeated. He looked at Marcus. "Why now? Why wait until you're dying? Why not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when it might have actually mattered?" "Because I was a coward," Marcus said simply. "I'm still a coward, but dying has a way of making you face things you've been running from. I don't want to die with this lie still living in the world. I don't want to die knowing your mother's name is still tainted because of what I did." Miguel was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "What happened to you? After you disappeared? After my mother died? What happened?" "I ran for 3 years," Marcus said. "Moved around, worked odd jobs, drank too much, made worse and worse decisions. Eventually I tried to rob a convenience store. Put 2 people in the hospital, got caught, got sentenced to 15 years. Been in prison ever since." "Did you tell anyone? In prison, did you ever tell anyone what you'd really done?" "No! I told myself it didn't matter, that I was already paying for my crimes. But I was lying to myself. I was just too scared to face what I'd done to your mother, to you." Miguel walked to the statue, kneeling before it. He touched the fresh roses at its base, the roses he'd placed there that morning, like he did every morning. "I talk to her here," he said quietly. "I tell her about my life, about my struggles, about the good days and the bad days, and I always apologize for not believing in her more, for having doubts when the evidence seemed so clear. You had nothing to apologize for, Marcus said. You were a kid. The evidence was planted. Anyone would have had doubts. But I was her son, Miguel said, his voice breaking. I should have known. I should have believed in her absolutely. You did the best you could with the information you had, Father Martinez said gently. That's all any of us can do. Miguel stood, turning to face Marcus. I need time. I need to process this. I need to figure out what I feel, what I think, what I want to do. I understand, Marcus said. But I want the record cleared, Miguel continued, his voice growing stronger. I want an official statement. I want everyone who whispered about my mother, everyone who judged her, everyone who turned their backs on us. I want them to know they were wrong. I want her name restored. Detective Sarah nodded. We'll make it happen. I'll coordinate with the DA's office, issue a press release, hold a press conference if you want. Your mother's innocence will be public record. And him? Miguel looked at Marcus. What happens to him? He'll face charges for the original crime, Sarah said. Embezzlement, evidence tampering, fraud. But given his terminal condition and the fact that he's already serving time, the DA will likely recommend the sentence is run concurrent with his current term. So he dies in prison either way, Miguel said. Yes, Marcus confirmed. I die in prison either way. This isn't about me getting out. This is about your mother's name. Miguel nodded slowly. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He stepped forward, closing the distance between himself and Marcus, and looked him directly in the eyes. I don't forgive you, Miguel said clearly. I don't know if I ever will. What you did to my mother, to me, to our family, it's unforgivable. But I'm glad you told the truth. I'm glad she'll be remembered correctly. And I'm glad you'll die knowing you did at least one right thing. Marcus's tears fell freely. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. The meeting ended shortly after. Marcus was escorted back to the prison van, his legs barely supporting him. As they drove away, he looked back at St. Catherine's Church, at the stained glass windows glowing in the morning light, at the place where he'd finally told the truth. Back in his cell, Marcus lay on his bunk, exhausted but strangely peaceful. Jerome's voice came from the neighboring cell. How'd it go? I told him everything, Marcus said. He didn't forgive me, but he's going to clear his mother's name. That's what you wanted, right? Yeah, that's what I wanted. Over the next week, Detective Sarah worked with the DA's office to process Marcus's confession. The case was officially reopened, evidence was reviewed, and Marcus provided a detailed written statement. The local news picked up the story. Cold case solved. Prisoner confesses to 23-year-old church embezzlement, clears dead woman's name. Miguel Rodriguez was interviewed, his face composed but his eyes still showing the pain of the revelation. My mother was innocent, he told the reporter. She was a good woman who died in shame for a crime she didn't commit. I'm grateful the truth has finally come out, even though it's 23 years too late. The community response was mixed. Some people were horrified by the injustice, apologetic for their past judgment of Elena Rodriguez. Others were skeptical, questioning why Marcus would confess now, wondering if there was more to the story. But the official record was clear. Elena Rodriguez was innocent, and Marcus Webb was guilty. Father Martinez held a special mass in Elena's memory, inviting the community to honor her life and service. Miguel stood in the front pew, surrounded by people who'd once avoided him, who now offered condolences and apologies. It was overwhelming, painful, and somehow healing all at once. After the Mass, Miguel approached Father Martinez. I want to do something for her. Something more than just clearing her name, something that honors who she was. What did you have in mind? The priest asked. A scholarship, Miguel said. The Elena Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship for single parents pursuing education. She always believed in helping people better themselves. This feels right. Father Martinez smiled. She would have loved that. That afternoon, Miguel visited his mother's grave for the first time since learning the truth. He knelt beside the headstone, touching the engraved letters of her name. Mom, he whispered, I know now. I know you were innocent. I know you died without anyone believing you, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I ever doubted. I'm sorry I couldn't save you." The wind rustled through the cemetery trees, carrying the scent of roses from the nearby gardens. Miguel stayed there for an hour, talking to his mother, telling her about the scholarship, about the cleared record, about how her name would be remembered with honor now. When he finally stood to leave, he felt lighter somehow. The weight he'd carried for 23 years, the shame, the doubt, the confusion, had shifted. It wasn't gone, but it was different. The truth had changed everything. Back at the prison, Marcus's health was declining rapidly. The cancer was spreading faster than the doctors had predicted. He spent most of his days in the infirmary now, too weak to return to his cell. Officer Martinez visited regularly, bringing news about the case, about Miguel, about the community response. "They're naming a scholarship after her," Martinez told him during one visit. "Miguel set it up for single parents." Marcus smiled weakly. "That's good. That's really good. Elena would have liked that." "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm dying," Marcus said with a slight laugh. "But lighter, like I'm not carrying as much weight." Martinez nodded. "You did a good thing, Webb. A hard thing, but a good thing." "I did the bare minimum," Marcus corrected. "I told the truth I should have told 23 years ago. That's not heroic. That's just finally being less of a coward." "Still counts," Martinez said. That night, Marcus dreamed of Elena again. But this time, the dream was different. They were in the church, standing in front of the Virgin Mary statue. Elena turned to him, her face peaceful, and said, "Thank you for telling Miguel the truth. He needed to know." "I'm sorry," Dream Marcus said. "I'm so sorry for what I did to you." "I know," Dream Elena said, "and Miguel knows now too. That's what matters." Marcus woke with tears on his face, but for the first time in 23 years, they weren't tears of guilt. They were tears of relief. 2 weeks after the confession, Miguel received an unexpected visitor at St. Catherine's. He was repairing a broken window in the parish hall when Father Martinez found him. "Miguel, there's someone here to see you, from the prison." Miguel's stomach tightened. "Marcus." "No, Officer Martinez. He says it's important." Miguel found the corrections officer waiting in the church office. Martinez stood when he entered, his expression somber. "Mr. Rodriguez, thank you for seeing me." "What's wrong?" Miguel asked, already knowing somehow. "Marcus Webb died this morning," Martinez said quietly. "The cancer moved faster than expected. He went peacefully, in his sleep." Miguel sank into a chair, processing. He'd known Marcus was dying, but hearing it confirmed was still a shock. Did he say anything? At the end? Martinez pulled an envelope from his jacket. "He wrote you a letter, asked me to deliver it after he was gone. Said he didn't want you to feel obligated to respond while he was still alive." Miguel took the envelope with trembling hands. His name was written on the front in careful, shaky handwriting. "Thank you for bringing it." "There's something else," Martinez said. "Marcus had no family, no one to claim his body. The state will handle the burial, but he made a specific request. He asked to be buried in the prison cemetery, not in any public space. He said he didn't deserve to rest anywhere near decent people." Miguel's throat tightened. That's sad. "He also left instructions that any personal belongings be donated, except for one thing." Martinez pulled out a small object wrapped in tissue paper. "He wanted you to have this." Miguel unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a rosary, simple wooden beads, worn smooth from use. His rosary? He said it was the only thing of value he owned, said he'd been praying it every day since he got sick, praying for courage to tell you the truth. He wanted you to have it, not as a gift, but as a reminder that even the worst people can try to do one right thing before they die. Miguel held the rosary, feeling the weight of it, the smoothness of the beads. "I don't know what to do with this." "You don't have to decide now," Martinez said gently, "but I thought you should have it." And the letter. After Martinez left, Miguel sat alone in the office, staring at the envelope. Finally, he opened it and began to read. Miguel, if you're reading this, I'm dead. I'm not going to apologize again. I've said sorry enough times, and words don't fix what I broke. But I want you to know some things. First, your mother talked about you constantly. When I was volunteering at the church, she'd tell anyone who'd listen about how smart you were, how kind, how much potential you had. She was so proud of you. Every single day she was proud. Second, the day she died, I heard about it on the news. I was hiding at my cousin's apartment, and the reporter said, "Apparent suicide," and I threw up. I threw up because I knew I'd killed her as surely as if I'd handed her those pills myself. I've lived with that knowledge every day since. Third, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I hope that knowing the truth helps you somehow. I hope it lets you remember your mother the way she really was. Good, faithful, innocent. I hope it lifts some of the weight you've been carrying. Fourth, I'm leaving you my rosary. I know it's not much. It's probably worthless to anyone but me. But I've prayed on those beads every day for months, praying for the courage to tell you the truth, praying for your mother's soul, praying that somehow, some way, the damage I caused could be lessened. You don't have to keep it. You can throw it away, burn it, whatever feels right. But I wanted you to have something physical, something that proves I spent my last months thinking about what I'd done, trying to make it right. Finally, thank you. Thank you for listening to my confession. Thank you for choosing to clear your mother's name, even though it meant reliving all that pain. Thank you for being a better man than I ever was. Your mother would be proud of who you've become. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but it's true. You survived what I did to your family, and you became someone good anyway. That's more than I ever managed. I hope you find peace, Miguel. Real peace, not the fake kind I tried to buy with silence and cowardice. You deserve it. Marcus Webb. Miguel read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Then he folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. He looked at the rosary in his hand, at the worn beads that Marcus had prayed on during his final months. He didn't know if he'd keep it. He didn't know if he could. But for now, he put it in his pocket and walked out to the sanctuary, to the Virgin Mary statue, to the place where his mother's memory lived. "Mom," he whispered, kneeling before the statue. "He's dead. Marcus is dead, and I don't know how to feel about it." The church was silent, except for the distant sound of traffic outside. Miguel stayed there for a long time, praying, thinking, trying to process everything that had happened in the past 2 weeks. Finally, he stood and walked to the cemetery, to his mother's grave. He pulled the rosary from his pocket and laid it gently on the headstone. "I don't know if this is right," he said, "but maybe you can pray for him now. Maybe you can do what I can't." Then, 3 months after Marcus's death, the Miguel Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship was officially established. Miguel had worked with Father Martinez and several community members to create a fund that would help single parents pursue education or vocational training. The first recipient was a single mother of 3 who wanted to become a nurse. At the scholarship ceremony, Miguel stood before a small crowd gathered in the church hall. Behind him was a large photo of his mother, young, smiling, full of life. It had been taken before the accusations, before the shame, before everything fell apart. "My mother believed in second chances," Miguel began, his voice steady. "She believed that everyone deserved the opportunity to better themselves, to grow, to become more than their circumstances. This scholarship honors that belief. It honors who she was, a woman of faith, compassion, and unwavering integrity." He paused, looking at the photo. "For 23 years, my mother's name was associated with a crime she didn't commit. She died believing the world thought she was a thief. But the truth has come out now, and I want everyone to remember her correctly. Miguel Rodriguez was innocent. She was good. She was everything this scholarship represents." The crowd applauded, and Miguel felt something shift inside him. This was healing. Not complete, Not perfect, but real. His mother's legacy was being restored, one scholarship, one life changed at a time. After the ceremony, Detective Sarah Chen approached him. "Your mother would be proud, Miguel, of the scholarship, of how you've handled all of this. You've turned something terrible into something good." "I'm trying," Miguel said. "Some days are harder than others. Some days I'm still angry at Marcus, at the situation, at how long it took for the truth to come out. But other days, I feel like maybe this is what my mother would have wanted. Not revenge, not bitterness, but something positive coming from the pain." Sarah nodded. "That's growth, that's healing." "Did you ever doubt her?" Miguel asked suddenly. "When you were investigating the case, did you ever think she might be innocent?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, yes. Something about it never sat right with me. Elena didn't fit the profile of an embezzler. She had no financial problems, no motive, no history of dishonesty, but the evidence was so clear, so damning. I convinced myself I was wrong, that my instincts were off." She looked at Miguel. "I'm sorry I didn't push harder. I'm sorry I didn't question the evidence more thoroughly." "You did your job," Miguel said. "Marcus was smart about how he framed her. He made it look airtight. You couldn't have known." "Still," Sarah said, "I should have trusted my gut." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the scholarship recipient talk excitedly with her children about starting nursing school. Finally, Miguel spoke. "I visited Marcus's grave last week." Sarah looked surprised. "You did?" "Yeah. I don't know why. I just felt like I needed to. The prison cemetery is small, just a few dozen graves for inmates who had no one to claim them. His marker is simple, just his name and dates. No epitaph, no flowers, nothing." "How did it feel, being there?" Miguel considered. "Strange. I stood there looking at his grave and I realized I didn't hate him anymore. I'm not saying I forgive him. I don't know if I ever will. But the burning anger I felt when he first confessed, that's gone. Now I just feel sad. Sad for my mother, sad for the years we lost, sad for Marcus too, in a way. He destroyed his own life along with ours." "That's profound," Sarah said. "That's real maturity. Or maybe I'm just tired of being angry," Miguel said with a slight smile. "Anger is exhausting. Moving forward is easier." As the ceremony wound down, Father Martinez approached with a young woman Miguel didn't recognize. "Miguel, this is Rachel Webb. She's Marcus's cousin." Miguel's eyes widened. His cousin. Rachel was in her 40s with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "I hope it's okay that I came. I heard about the scholarship, about what you're doing to honor your mother. I wanted to meet you, to tell you how sorry I am for what Marcus did." "You don't need to apologize for him," Miguel said gently. "I know, but I feel like I should. Marcus stayed with me for a few months after he took the money. I didn't know what he'd done. He told me he was just taking a break from town, figuring things out. If I'd known, if I'd pushed harder to find out what was really going on." She trailed off. "You couldn't have known," Miguel said, echoing what he'd told Sarah. "Marcus was good at hiding the truth." Rachel pulled an envelope from her purse. "I found this in Marcus's things after he died. The prison sent me a box of his belongings. Not much, just some letters and personal items. This was addressed to you, but it wasn't with the letter Officer Martinez delivered. I think Marcus wrote it earlier, maybe wasn't sure if he should send it." Miguel took the envelope, his heart racing. Another letter from Marcus. He wasn't sure he could handle more revelations, more confessions, more pain. "You don't have to read it now," Rachel said quickly, "or ever, if you don't want to. I just thought you should have it." "Thank you," Miguel said, tucking the envelope into his jacket pocket. That night, alone in his small apartment, Miguel finally opened the second letter. His hands shook as he unfolded the pages, 3 of them covered in Marcus's careful handwriting. "Miguel, I'm writing this a week before I'm supposed to confess to you at the church. I don't know if I'll actually go through with it. I'm terrified. terrified of facing you, terrified of seeing the pain in your eyes, terrified of finally admitting out loud what I've kept hidden for so long. But I'm more terrified of dying without telling you the truth. So I'm writing this as a backup, in case I lose my courage. If you're reading this, it means either I chickened out and died without confessing, or I did confess, and Officer Martinez thought you should have this too. I want to tell you about the day I decided to steal the money. It wasn't some grand plan. It wasn't calculated or clever. It was stupid and impulsive, and born out of desperation I'd created for myself. I'd gotten involved with some guys who were bad news. They were older, seemed cool, and I wanted to impress them. I borrowed money from them to buy a car, thinking I'd pay them back with my part-time job. But the car broke down, the job didn't pay enough, and suddenly I owed them $3,000 I didn't have. They threatened me, said if I didn't pay up, they'd hurt me, hurt my family. I was 17 and scared and stupid. So I thought about the church money, about how easy it would be to take just enough to pay them off. But once I started, I couldn't stop. The guys wanted more. I wanted more. 3,000 became 5, became 10, became 50, and the whole time, your mother trusted me. She'd smile at me, tell me I was doing a good job, say she was glad I was friends with you. When I realized the audit was coming, I panicked. I knew I'd be caught, so I made the worst decision of my life. I framed your mother. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd come forward once things calmed down, that I'd find a way to fix it. But then she died, and there was no fixing it. There was only living with what I'd done. I want you to know that your mother never suspected me. Even when the police were investigating, even when they were searching her house, she never once thought it could be me. She told Father O'Brien that she couldn't understand how the evidence got there, that someone must have made a mistake. She believed in people's goodness, even when they didn't deserve it. I also want you to know that I tried to confess once before. About 5 years into my prison sentence, I wrote a letter to the police explaining everything, but I never sent it. I convinced myself it was too late, that it wouldn't matter, that it would only cause more pain. I was lying to myself. I was just too scared. The cancer diagnosis changed everything. Suddenly I had a deadline, a ticking clock, and I realized I couldn't die with this lie still living in the world. I couldn't die knowing you still believed your mother was guilty. So, I'm going to confess. I'm going to face you, tell you everything, and accept whatever consequences come. Not because I'm brave, I'm not, but because it's the only right thing left for me to do. If I succeed, if I actually go through with it, then this letter is just extra context. But if I fail, if I die before I can tell you the truth, then please know, your mother was innocent. She was good. She was everything you remember her being before the accusations. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I took from you both. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect understanding. I just hope that knowing the truth helps you somehow. I hope it lets you remember your mother with pride instead of confusion. I hope it gives you peace. I'm going to try to be brave now. I'm going to try to do one good thing before I die. Wish me luck, even though I don't deserve it. Miguel set down the letter, his vision blurred with tears. Marcus had been terrified. He'd almost backed out. But he'd gone through with it anyway, had faced Miguel and told the truth despite his fear. That took courage. Twisted, late, inadequate courage, but courage nonetheless. Miguel thought about the rosary he'd left on his mother's grave, about Marcus's final months spent praying for strength, about the scholarship that was changing lives in his mother's name. He thought about anger and forgiveness, about justice and mercy, about the complicated mess of human nature. And he realized something. He didn't have to forgive Marcus to acknowledge that the confession had been important. He didn't have to excuse what Marcus had done to appreciate that telling the truth had taken real courage. He could hold both things at once, the anger at the crime and the gratitude for the confession. That night, Miguel returned to St. Catherine's. The church was dark and empty, lit only by votive candles and moonlight through stained glass. He walked to the Virgin Mary statue and knelt before it. "Mom," he whispered, "I read Marcus's other letter. He was scared. He almost didn't tell me, but he did it anyway." Miguel paused, gathering his thoughts. "I don't forgive him. I don't think I can. But I understand him a little better now. And I'm grateful he told the truth, even if it came 23 years too late." He stayed there for a long time, praying, thinking, letting the peace of the church wash over him. When he finally stood to leave, he felt different, lighter, like he'd set down a burden he'd been carrying for so long he'd forgotten it was there. The truth had set him free. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to move forward, enough to honor his mother's memory, enough to live. 6 months after Marcus's death, Miguel stood in the prison cemetery. He'd come alone, without telling anyone, because this felt like something he needed to do privately. Marcus's grave was exactly as he'd described. Simple, unmarked except for a small metal plaque with his name and dates. No flowers, no decorations, no sign that anyone had visited since the burial. Miguel knelt down, pulling a small object from his pocket. It was the rosary, the one Marcus had left him, the one he'd placed on his mother's grave months ago. He'd retrieved it last week, finally ready to decide what to do with it. "I don't know if you can hear me," Miguel said quietly. "I don't know if you're anywhere or if death is just nothing. But I wanted to come here to tell you something." He paused, organizing his thoughts. "I don't forgive you. I want to be clear about that. What you did to my mother, to me, to our family, it's not something I can just let go of. The pain is still there. The anger is still there, even if it's quieter now." A bird called from a nearby tree. Miguel continued, "But I'm grateful you told the truth. I'm grateful my mother's name has been cleared. I'm grateful I can remember her now without that shadow of doubt, without wondering if maybe the accusations were true. You gave me that. It doesn't erase what you did, but it matters." He held up the rosary, letting it catch the sunlight. "I'm going to keep this, not as a memorial to you, but as a reminder that truth matters, even when it's hard. A reminder that people are complicated, capable of terrible things and brave things, sometimes both at once. A reminder that healing is possible, even from the deepest wounds." Miguel stood, placing the rosary back in his pocket. "I hope you found peace, Marcus. I hope whatever comes after death, you're not suffering anymore. And I hope somehow, somewhere, you and my mother have made peace too. Because I'm trying to move forward to build something good from all this pain." He turned to leave, then paused. "Thank you for telling the truth, for being brave enough to face me, for giving me back my mother's innocence. It's not forgiveness, but it's acknowledgement. It's all I can give you." As Miguel walked away from the cemetery, he felt the weight of the rosary in his pocket, a physical reminder of everything that had happened, everything he'd learned, everything he'd survived. His phone buzzed. It was Father Martinez. "The second scholarship recipient has been chosen. Can you come to the church this afternoon to meet her?" Miguel smiled, typing back, "I'll be there." Life was moving forward. The Elena Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship was growing, helping more people, changing more lives. His mother's legacy was being written in real time, in real people's futures. That mattered more than anything else. That evening, Miguel met with the new scholarship recipient, a single father of 2 who wanted to become a teacher. As they talked about his plans, his dreams, his gratitude for the opportunity, Miguel felt his mother's presence somehow. Not literally, not supernaturally, but in the spirit of what they were doing, in the kindness being passed forward, in the hope being offered to someone who needed it. "Your mother must have been an amazing woman," the man said, "to inspire something like this." "She was," Miguel said simply. "She really was." After the meeting, Miguel walked through the church to the sanctuary. The Virgin Mary statue stood in its alcove, serene and beautiful, exactly as his mother had envisioned it. He approached it, touching the cool marble base. "We're doing good things in your name, Mom," he whispered. "We're helping people. We're making a difference. I think you'd be proud." He pulled out the rosary, holding it up to the statue. "And I'm learning to live with complicated truths. Learning that people can be both terrible and brave. Learning that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and moving forward doesn't mean letting go of the past. It just means carrying it differently." Miguel wrapped the rosary around his hand, feeling the smooth beads. "I'm going to be okay, Mum. It took 23 years, but I finally know the truth, and the truth, as painful as it is, has set me free." He stayed there for a while longer, praying, remembering, honoring his mother's memory. When he finally left the church, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was a new beginning. And for the first time in 23 years, Miguel Rodriguez felt truly at peace with his mother's memory. Not because the pain was gone, but because the truth had finally been told. And truth, he'd learned, was the foundation of all real healing.